Brookhaven College lived its usual life. Students were rushing to lectures, buzzing in the corridors, discussing upcoming exams. This academic year, there was a new history teacher, Professor Richard Wallace. He was strict but charismatic. His lectures were intense, but the subject seemed difficult to the students. Wallace was 42 years old, tall, trim, with short dark hair and piercing eyes. He was always dressed smartly: jacket, shirt, expensive watch. Rumors quickly spread among the students that he rarely gave good grades, but he was especially friendly with some girls. This day after class, he detained one of the students, Kimberly Johnson. She was attractive, dark skin, long curly hair, expressive eyes. She was an average student, but she tried. When the classroom was empty, Wallace walked slowly to the door, closed it, and turned to the girl with a slight smile. "Kimberly, your grades leave a lot to be desired," he said, sitting down at his desk. "I think we can find a way to improve the situation." The girl looked at him warily. There was tension in the air. Kimberly clutched the strap of her backpack, trying not to show excitement. She knew she didn't have the best grades, but the professor's strange confidence alarmed her. "I'm trying, Professor, but your class is really hard," she replied, shifting her gaze from him to the door. Wallace grinned, folded his hands on the table, and looked at her carefully. "I know you're trying, but it's not enough for you. You're not the first student to face this problem." His voice sounded soft, but there was something strange slipping in it. "Sometimes in life you have to look for alternative paths." Kimberly frowned. "What alternative paths?" Wallace stood up, walked slowly around the table, and leaned against it beside her. "It's very simple. I can help you. You won't have to worry about the exam. In return, you can help me." She felt her breathing hitch. Her heart started beating faster. "What?" "Don't worry." Wallace leaned closer, his voice almost a whisper. "Just think about my offer." Kimberly felt a chill run down her spine. Kimberly felt her palms sweat. She couldn't believe what she'd just heard. Wallace continued to stare at her with the same strange smile, waiting for an answer. "Minus, I don't know what you mean," she muttered, taking a step back. The professor grinned and tilted his head to the side. "Let's not pretend, Kimberly. You're a smart girl." He crossed his arms over his chest. "But you need help, and all I'm offering is a mutually beneficial deal." She felt her throat go dry. She'd never faced anything like this before. "Minus, I need to think about it," she said, trying to keep her composure. Of course," Wallace nodded, straightening up. "Take your time, but remember, time passes. And unfortunately, grades aren't going to fix themselves." Kimberly felt herself shiver. She turned around and hurried out of the classroom. As soon as the door closed behind her, her breathing became ragged. What was that? Did he really offer that to me? Her mind was all jumbled up. She didn't know what to do, but one thing was certain. She needed to talk to someone. Kimberly stepped out into the fresh air, breathing heavily. Her heart was still racing. She knew who to call. "Hello?" A cheerful voice answered the phone. "Celeste, are you busy?" Kimberly's voice shook. "No, what's wrong? Are you okay? Minus, can we meet? Right now?" Sure. Let's go to the campus cafeteria." 10 minutes later, Kimberly was sitting across from Celeste in a small student cafeteria. Her friend was the complete opposite: confident, independent, a light-skinned African-American woman with short reddish curls, wearing a loose sweatshirt and jeans. She looked at Kimberly with concern. "Speak." Kimberly took a deep breath. "It's about Professor Wallace. He offered me something weird, like a deal for grades." Celeste frowned. "Are you serious? What exactly did he say?" Kimberly repeated the conversation, feeling fear rising in her chest. damn it, Kim. This is bad. Are you sure you understood him correctly? He was speaking in hints, but the meaning was clear. Celeste gritted her teeth. You wouldn't be the first. I've heard the rumors, but there's no proof. Kimberly clenched her fists. So this isn't the first time he's done this? Celeste twirled a curl thoughtfully around her finger. Her eyes narrowed. Kim, you realize this is serious, don't you? If he's really doing this, there are probably other girls who've been hurt. Kimberly nodded, lowering her gaze. But what can I do? If I tell, no one will believe me. It's the word of a student against the word of a respected professor. Celeste frowned. I've heard things, but it's just a rumor. A few of the girls in our class have suddenly started getting good grades, even though they were struggling before. They don't say anything, but there's a look of fear in their eyes. Kimberly felt her heart race. Do you think he's got them too? I don't know, but there are too many coincidences. Kimberly sighed, biting her lip. I'm afraid, if I say no, what will he do? Celeste leaned closer and said quietly, We'll figure it out. You're not alone, Kim. She squeezed her friend's hand, and for the first time that evening, Kimberly felt a shred of confidence. The next few days passed for Kimberly in suspense. She tried to avoid Professor Wallace, but his gaze followed her in the hallways. He didn't say much in lectures, but his slight smile when their gazes crossed made her heart clench. During one of the breaks, Kimberly approached Celeste, who was looking something up on her phone. Any news? She whispered. Celeste looked up. I talked to this girl, Jasmine. Remember her? She was a year older and then abruptly transferred to another college. Kimberly frowned. Yeah, but what about her? Celeste put the phone away and whispered. She said she confronted him too. He offered her an alternative path, but she refused. A week later, she was failing her exams and had to leave. Kimberly felt a chill run down her spine. So, if I say no, he might try to do the same. Both girls looked at each other. It was worse than they thought. Kimberly felt cornered. Celeste's words couldn't get out of her head. If Jasmine had left because of him, how many other girls had been hurt but kept silent? That evening, lying on her dorm bed, Kimberly made up her mind. She opened up social media and texted Jasmine. Hey, it's Kimberly. You went to Brookhaven, right? I need your help. It's about Professor Wallace. The answer came back a half hour later. I don't want to get involved. I've already been hurt. I suggest you just leave before it gets worse. Kimberly clutched the phone in her hands. She dialed it. So, it wasn't just me he was doing this to? A few minutes passed before Jasmine answered again. Elayen, there were lots of girls. It's just that no one talks about it. Kimberly's breath caught. Do you know anyone else? A long pause, then a short answer. Yes. Kimberly felt a chill run down her spine. Kimberly stared at the phone screen for a long time, trying to comprehend what she was reading. Anxiety was building in her chest. She quickly typed the message. Can you tell me their names? Long pause. Kimberly was already thinking Jasmine wouldn't answer, but then the message appeared. Kimberly, I can't, but one of them is still a student there. Her name is Monica Brooks. Try talking to her. Kimberly immediately remembered the girl. Tall, beautiful, long braids. She always sat in the back rows and tried not to attract attention. Thank you, I'll give it a try. Kimberly quickly texted Celeste. We need to find Monica. The reply came right away. Kimberly, I saw her at the library today. Let's meet her there. Kimberly felt her insides tighten. She didn't know if Monica was ready to talk. But if she really had been hurt by Professor Wallace, she might have answers. The library was almost empty. The dim light of the lamps created a subdued atmosphere, and Kimberly spotted Monica at once. She was sitting at the far table, bent over her books. Celeste was already waiting at the entrance. "There she is," she nodded toward Monica. Kimberly took a deep breath and walked confidently toward the girl. "Hi, Monica." She cautiously sat down across from her. Monica looked up. Her brown eyes narrowed. "You're Kimberly, aren't you?" The voice was quiet but tense. "Yes, I'm sorry to bother you, but I need your help. It's about Professor Wallace." Monica froze. Her fingers clutched the edge of the book. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said quickly. Kimberly looked her in the eye. "Jasmine said you know. I ran into him too. I need the truth." Monica closed the book abruptly. "You don't realize who you're messing with. He's dangerous. That's why I want to stop him," Kimberly said firmly. Monica licked her lips nervously. She was silent for a few seconds, and then she said quietly, "Okay, but not here." In a few minutes, they were walking along the campus, trying to find a secluded spot. Monica walked quickly ahead without looking back, and Kimberly and Celeste followed, all three of them tensely silent. Finally, they stopped near the old sports field, where there was usually no one. Monica leaned against the fence, wrapping her arms around herself. "You don't understand." Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "I thought he was just using me. But then I realized it wasn't like that." Kimberly watched her face carefully. "What do you mean?" Monica looked at her, her eyes seeming empty. "He knew I was alone. I came here to start a new life, and he took that and used it. Offered to improve my grades in exchange for something. At first, I thought it was a mistake, but then..." Monica paused and lowered her gaze. Kimberly felt her heart clench. "You're not alone, Monica. I faced this too. We need to be told." Celeste stepped closer. "We can stop him." Monica pressed his lips together. "He said if I tell, it'll make things worse. I can't risk..." Kimberly took her hand. "We'll help you. You're not alone." Monica sighed heavily, her hands shaking. "He broke me," she whispered. "I wanted to leave, but he made it clear that I had no way out." Kimberly felt anger boiling up inside. "You do have a way out, Monica. We'll figure it out." Celeste crossed her arms across her chest. "We need to gather evidence. Words mean nothing against a man with so much power." Monica grinned bitterly. "Do you think I haven't tried? He's careful. He always is." Kimberly looked at her. "But if we had a video or a recording, something that couldn't be denied?" Monica froze. "He always calls the girls into his office." Kimberly nodded. "So we need to catch him there." Celeste frowned. "It's too risky, but it's the only chance," Kimberly replied firmly. Monica thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay, if you're willing to take the risk, I'll help." Kimberly, Celeste, and Monica left the playground, sticking together as if they were a united front against an invisible enemy. "We need to find out when he's alone in his office," Kimberly said quietly as they walked across campus. Monica nodded thoughtfully. "He usually stays late after the evening lectures. Sometimes I've seen him talking to girls one-on-one, even after class." Celeste frowned. "So someone must go in to see him to write everything down." Kimberly swallowed. She knew it had to be her. "I'll do it," she said firmly. Monica looked at her anxiously. "Are you sure? It's dangerous." Kimberly nodded. "I can do it, as long as I have my recorder or camera on." Celeste pulled out her cell phone. "I have a program that can record sound even if the screen is off." Kimberly took the phone in her hands, feeling her heart pounding. "So, I'll go see him tomorrow after class." All three of them looked at each other. It was a risky plan, but they had no other choice. The evening of the next day came. Kimberly felt her insides tighten with tension. She stood in front of Professor Wallace's office door, clutching the phone in her pocket. The recording was already in progress. She took a deep breath and knocked. "Come in," came a familiar voice. Kimberly entered, trying to look unsure. Wallace was sitting at his desk, checking students' papers. He looked up and smiled slightly. "Kimberly, is something wrong?" She took a step forward. "Professor, I wanted to talk about my last paper. I tried, but the grade." He put down his pen and leaned back in his chair. "I understand," he said, bowing his head. "It's a difficult subject. Sometimes you have to compromise." Kimberly felt her heart racing. Compromises? He stood up slowly and walked around the table. "You want a good grade, don't you, Kimberly?" There was something icy in his voice. She clenched her fists, not giving any sign. "Yeah. Then maybe we can find a solution that works for both of us." Kimberly didn't move. The recording was coming on. She had to hold on a little longer. Kimberly felt her fingers clench into a fist in her pocket. She knew she should stay calm, but the disgust came in waves. Professor Wallace slowly leaned back against the desk, his gaze sliding over her. "You're a smart girl, Kimberly." His voice was soft, almost affectionate. "I think you understand how the world works. Sometimes you have to be flexible to get what you want." She swallowed hard, forcing herself not to show anger. "What exactly are you talking about, Professor?" He bowed his head slightly, as if surprised at her naivety. "I'm talking about opportunities, about how talented students like you can make their lives easier if they take the right chances." Kimberly looked him straight in the eye. "And what would it take to do that?" He smiled, slowly stepping closer. "Just a small favor, a mutually beneficial one." She felt everything inside her clench, but she knew the recording continued. She had to wait it out. "I need to think." Her voice sounded uncertain. Professor Wallace nodded in satisfaction. "Of course, Kimberly. I'll give you some time. Come see me tomorrow after class and we'll settle this matter." She nodded and headed for the door, feeling her legs shaking. "I did it. Now we have proof." Kimberly almost ran out of the office, closing the door behind her. Her heart was pounding frantically and her head was buzzing. She inhaled deeply, trying to come to her senses. Celeste and Monica were waiting for her around the corner. "Well?" Celeste asked tensely. Kimberly pulled out her phone and showed the screen. The recording lasted over 5 minutes. "We have proof," she whispered. Monica covered her mouth with her hands, tears glistening in her eyes. "You really did it?" Celeste looked around quickly. "We need to get out of here. We'll talk somewhere safe." They headed in the direction of the dormitory. "He used the same scheme again," Kimberly said quietly. "Talking about chance, about opportunity." Monica clenched her fists. "It's his usual tactic. He creates the illusion of choice." Kimberly nodded. "Now we have the tape. All that's left is to decide what to do next." Celeste frowned. "We can't just go to the principal. He might scuttle the case." Kimberly thought for a moment. "Then we have to make it public." Kimberly, Celeste, and Monica sat in the dorm room. The door locked, the curtains drawn. On the table was Kimberly's cell phone, their main bargaining chip. "We can't just put this on the internet," Celeste said, shaking her head. "We have to do it right, or we'll just get shut down." Monica wrapped her arms around herself nervously. "If we don't go public with this, he'll just keep doing what he's doing." Kimberly tapped her fingers on the table thoughtfully. "We need someone who can take this to the police, someone we can trust." Celeste grinned. "The question is, who?" "A lot of the professors have each other's backs." There was silence. "What if we went to the press?" Monica suggested. Kimberly frowned. "That could work. If the tape got on the news, the university wouldn't be able to cover it up." Celeste nodded. I know a girl in the journalism department. She runs a student blog where she posts exposés. Her name is Riley. Kimberly's thinking. Then we should meet her, but discreetly. They looked at each other, realizing they had taken the first step in exposing the professor. The next day, Kimberly, Celeste, and Monica made their way cautiously across campus, heading for the library, where they'd agreed to meet Riley. "Are you sure she's reliable?" Monica asked in a whisper. Celeste nodded. "Riley is always looking for the truth. She's not afraid to expose dirty schemes, even if it puts her at risk." The library was quiet. Riley sat at the far table, leafing through notes on a clipboard. She was a short African-American woman with short, straight hair, wearing glasses and dressed in a strict shirt. "Are you Kimberly?" she asked as the girls approached. "Yes, that's us." Kimberly sat down across from her. Riley looked at them over her glasses. "Celeste said you have information that could blow up this university." Kimberly pulled out her cell phone and placed it on the table. "We have a recording. Professor Wallace is offering me intimacy for a grade." Riley raised an eyebrow, but her expression didn't change. "Are you sure you want to go public with this?" "We need to do this," Kimberly said firmly. Riley looked at the phone, then at the girls. "Okay, give me time to prepare the material, but be careful. None of you will be safe afterward." That evening, Kimberly couldn't sleep. She lay in her room looking up at the ceiling, replaying their conversation with Riley in her head. "Neither of you will be safe after this." Those words wouldn't get out of her head. Her phone vibrated. A message from Riley. "The material is ready. I'm posting it tomorrow. Stay tuned." Kimberly took a deep breath. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, the university lived a normal life. Until now. A couple hours after classes started, students' phones started blowing up with notifications. A post appeared on Riley's student blog. "A college professor has been accused of sexual harassment. We have a recording in our possession that confirms it. Details coming soon." A wave of whispers went around campus. Hallways discussed the news. Someone even showed the post in the auditorium during a lecture. Kimberly sat in a couple classes, feeling her breathing quicken. She saw students whispering, someone looking in her direction. Celeste texted her, "It's on. Be careful." Kimberly gripped her phone tighter. There was no turning back now. A wave of rumors swept through the college with incredible speed. Now, not only students, but also professors were talking about the scandalous revelation. Kimberly caught more than a few glances, some with admiration, some with suspicion. Celeste and Monica sat with her in the cafeteria. The atmosphere was tense. "Did you see what they wrote in the comments?" Monica whispered, putting her phone on the table. Kimberly glanced at the screen. "If it's true, that bastard should go to jail." "I don't believe it. This is someone's revenge." "Is there any proof, or just another rumor?" "People are doubting," said Kimberly, scrolling through the comments. "It was expected," Celeste replied. "But Riley would post the tape tonight. Things would change after that." Monica glanced around nervously. "The main thing is that he doesn't find out who did it before he does." Kimberly took a deep breath. Even if he did, it would be too late. The truth would come out. But she knew the worst was yet to come. In the evening, the entire campus seemed to freeze in anticipation. Students were glued to their phone screens, waiting for the recording to be posted. Kimberly, Celeste, and Monica sat in their dorms, updating Riley's blog every few seconds. And lo and behold, the post appeared. "Attention! An exclusive recording of the evidence against Professor Wallace. See for yourself." With trembling fingers, Kimberly pressed play. The video showed her, tense, sitting in her office. The professor's voice was clear. "You're a smart girl, Kimberly, but sometimes it's not just knowledge that gets you a grade." There was silence in the room. "Oh my God," Monica whispered. Celeste clenched her fists tightly. Now he wouldn't be exonerated. Chaos ensued in the comments under the video. This is disgusting. How is he still working at the college? I hope he's already been fired. Where are the police? That's it. Kimberly closed her eyes, feeling her breathing quicken. It wasn't a rumor anymore. But along with relief came fear. What would happen next? The next day, the entire campus was subjected to a storm of discussion. Students couldn't believe it was happening right under their noses. Everyone discussed the video, some supported it, and some doubted it. But the fact was clear. The evidence was irrefutable. Kimberly sat in the hallway, nervously rubbing her fingers together. There was no clear plan in her head on how to proceed. Suddenly, her cell phone rang. Hey, Kimberly, it's Riley. Did you hear? They've already taken the professor down to the station. Kimberly froze. What? Her voice shook. The police have already conducted interviews. They're starting an investigation. It's not just hype. They've taken him into custody. Kimberly felt her heart clench. He's under arrest? Yes, and you'll probably be a witness at the trial. Her fingers clenched into a fist. This was getting real. Thanks for the information, Riley. We'll be ready. Finished speaking, Kimberly felt the fear clench in her throat. Things had gotten serious. Her life wouldn't be the same now. A few days later, Kimberly received a subpoena. Her name was listed as a witness in the case against Professor Wallace. Her spirits felt heavy and her thoughts were confused. She sat with Celeste and Monica in the cafeteria, eating the last of her salad. Are you ready? Celeste asked, her face serious. Kimberly nodded silently. Yeah, but I'm so scared. This isn't just a case of him trying to use me. It's about everyone who's been deceived by him. Monica put her hand on Kimberly's shoulder. You're not alone. We'll be there for you. You have the truth with you, and that's what matters most. Kimberly sighed. She knew it wasn't easy, but one thought plagued her. What if this whole thing got shut down again? What if Wallace's lawyer found a way to exonerate him? I don't want this all to be for nothing, she said, staring into her cup. Celeste smiled, but her eyes remained intense. Don't worry. We'll make sure he's held accountable for his actions. You're not alone in that. Kimberly lifted her head. She felt something awaken inside her. The fire of the fight. Let's do this. We have to make it to the end. After Kimberly gave her testimony in court, she felt like her life was finally beginning to move toward the end of this nightmare. But there was still one thing that troubled her the most. What would happen next? How would she live after this was all over? Celeste and Monica continued to support her, but Kimberly herself couldn't shake the feeling of anxiety. It's going to be okay, Celeste said, noticing Kimberly's pensive expression. You made the right decision. We all support it. But Kimberly knew the doubts would haunt her until the very end. They all thought life would return to normal after Professor Wallace's arrest. But it was clear to her that there would be no normal life after all this. Anyway, she said, I have no regrets. I couldn't keep quiet. Monica took her hand. We're all with you. A few days passed, and the college became a very different place. Many students began to see things from a new perspective. The rumors about Professor Wallace and his arrest were no longer a secret. The whole campus was discussing what had happened. Some expressed support, some expressed doubts, but it didn't matter to Kimberly anymore. She sat in the library going over old exam notes, but her thoughts kept returning to the event that had changed her life. Suddenly, Riley walked up. Hi, he said, sitting down across from her. How are you? Kimberly smiled, even though she felt heavy inside. I'm fine, just trying to get back to normal. You know you're gonna be... Riley looked at her with concern. There's a lot of questions expected from the press, and then there's that trial. Kimberly nodded. I'm ready for it. It's not easy for me, but I know I did the right thing. Riley looked at her carefully. I'm proud of you. Over the next few days, Kimberly felt the pressure of public opinion starting to weigh on her. Some students began to look at her with admiration, others with condemnation. There was a lot of whispering in the hallways, and she was called a heroine and a traitor at the same time. She was walking across campus and heard someone whisper her name from afar. Kimberly turned and saw Jason, one of the older students. Don't you regret doing all this? He asked, his eyes serious. She hesitated, then answered confidently, No, I don't regret it. It was the right thing to do. Do you realize that this will change everything? It's going to affect the reputation of the college, all of us, Jason said, and there was anxiety in his voice. Kimberly stood for a few seconds in thought, then answered with conviction, I can't keep quiet. This is bigger than college. It's about justice. She walked away, feeling Jason's eyes on her, but no longer paying attention to his words. Every day, Kimberly felt the pressure more and more. All the conversations, the stares, she couldn't avoid the attention. The trial was approaching, and it was putting pressure on her nervous system. Every time she walked past the courthouse, her heart began to beat faster, but she couldn't back down. One evening, as she sat in her dorm, she got a call from Monica. Kim, are you ready? She asked, her voice sounding concerned. I'm not sure, Kimberly replied. This isn't what I expected. I thought it would be easier. Monica was quiet for a few seconds. I understand, but remember, you're not alone. We're all with you. You did the right thing, and your courage is what will help others, even if you can't see it right now. Kimberly sighed. Thank you. I'll do my best. She hung up the phone and sank back into thought. She had a trial waiting for her, but now she felt she was ready. The day of the trial came. Kimberly arrived at the courthouse along with the other testimonies. Her heart was pounding in her chest, her hands cold with nerves. She stood in front of the courtroom door, feeling like this whole process was changing her forever. Inside the courtroom, it was quiet but tense. The judge sat at his desk. Professor Wallace's lawyer had already begun his defense. He was trying to refute all the accusations, pointing out possible errors in the recording. But when Kimberly stood up and began to testify, everything changed. She told everything with restraint, not missing a single detail. Her voice didn't waver as she recounted all the moments that had driven her decision. Every word she said was backed up by the videotape. When she finished, there was silence in the hall. Everyone waited for the decision. The judge adjourned for the verdict. When the trial continued, Professor Wallace looked much less confident. The lawyer tried to argue that the charges were unfounded, but all eyes were on the videotape that Kimberly had provided. The jurors were scrutinizing her every word, and the tape as evidence was undeniable. When Kimberly finished her testimony, her body was still shaking, but she felt she had done the right thing. All her worries, fears, and doubts were gone, leaving only a sense of justice. After a few hours of sitting, the judge announced the verdict. Professor Wallace was found guilty and sentenced to life imprisonment. It wasn't just justice, it was liberation for the many students who had been silent. Kimberly stood on the courthouse steps, feeling a lightness fill her heart. She had done it. Professor Wallace was sentenced to life in prison. Kimberly felt relieved. It wasn't just the end for him, but the beginning for her. She had made the right choice, even when it was scary. There was a new chapter ahead of her, free of the past.